Andreas Hofer was a Tyrolean innkeeper and drover, who in 1809 became the leader of the Tyrolean Rebellion against the revolutionary Napoleonic invasion during the War of the Fifth Coalition. He was subsequently captured and executed. Hofer is still today venerated as a folk hero, freedom fighter and Austrian patriot. Life. Andreas Hofer was born 1767 in St. Leonhard in Passau, in the Habsburg Crown land of Tyrol. His father was an innkeeper of the Sandhofen, and Andreas followed in his footsteps when he inherited the establishment. He also traded wine and horses in adjacent northern Italy and learned the Italian language. He married Anna Ladurner. In 1791 he was elected to the Tyrolean Landtag Assembly. In German he was known as a Wirt and thus ever after Sandwirt. In the War of the Third Coalition against the French he became a sharpshooter and later a militia captain in the Austrian Imperial and Royal Army. After the Austrian defeat, Tyrol was transferred to the Kingdom of Bavaria according to the 1805 Treaty of Pressburg. During the stern measures of Minister Maximilian von Montgelas and the forced recruitment into the Bavarian army, Hofer became a leader of the anti-Bavarian movement. In January 1809, he was part of a delegation to Vienna to ask Emperor Francis I of Austria for support for a possible uprising. The emperor gave his assurances and the delegation returned home. Hofer began to secretly organize insurrection, visiting villages and holding councils of war in local inns. Reputedly he was so much on the move that he signed his messages Andreas Hofer, from where I am, and letters to him were addressed to wherever he may be. At the same time other leaders organized their own forces elsewhere in the Alps. Hofer became a leader of a militia contingent in the Passau Valley. Armed rebellion begins. The Tyrolean Rebellion began on the 9th of April 1809 in Innsbruck. The previous night, organizers dumped sacks of sawdust into the river and is a sign to start the rebellion, floating through the town and down the Inn valley. It alerted the rebels. Church bells summoned men to fight with muskets and farmyard implements. They soon overran smaller Bavarian garrisons and surprised a column of French infantry that was passing through the area. On April 11th, Tyrolean militia defeated a Bavarian force in Sterzing, which led to the occupation of Innsbruck before noon. Though French forces came across the Brenner Pass as a relief and a united French-Bavarian contingent counterattacked the next night, the Tyroleans fought them in the First Battle of Bergheisel until Hofer and his allies won on the morning of the 13th. While Austrian forces under General Johann Gabriel Chastel de Courcelles moved into the Tyrolean capital and installed a provisional government, led by Joseph Hofer. Hofer advanced south, taking Bozen and Trent. Hopes of a successful rebellion waned when Napoleon defeated the Austrian forces of Archduke Charles of Austria in a series of battles of Tugendhausen, Ebensburg, Eckmühl, and Ratisbon, whereafter the Austrian troops withdrew from Tyrol and Hofer had to pull back to the mountains. The French Marshal François-Joseph Lefebvre took charge of the Tyrolean theatre, and Bavarian and Saxon forces under the command of Karl Philipp von Wrede on May 13 defeated the Austrians in a bloody skirmish at Wurgel. The Bavarians reoccupied Innsbruck on May 19. However, when the French allies left, the rebellion flared up again. Hofer takes command. Hofer became the effective commander-in-chief of the Tyrolean rebels, with the support of other leaders such as Joseph Speckbacher and Father Joachim Haspinger. He commanded a force of Tyroleans approximately 20,000 strong, together with a couple of hundred Austrian soldiers who had joined them after the retreat of the Austrian army. In the Second Battle of Bergheisel, from May 25 to May 29, 1809, 1809, Hofer's troops again defeated the Bavarians, driving them out of the country and retaking Innsbruck on May 30. On May 29, Hofer received a letter from Emperor Francis in which he promised not to sign any peace treaty that would include giving up Tyrol. An Austrian intendant came to rule Tyrol and Hofer returned to his home. However, Napoleon again defeated Austrian troops in the Battle of Wagram on July 6. The armistice of Znaim ceded Tyrol to Bavaria again. Napoleon sent 40,000 French and Bavarian troops to take over Tyrol and they reoccupied Innsbruck. After little hesitation, Hofer joined battle again. The French offered a reward for his head. On August 13–14, in the Third Battle of Bergheisel, Hofer's Tyroleans defeated the French troops of Marshal François-Joseph Lefebvre in a 12-hour battle after a downhill charge. The Tyroleans retook Innsbruck. Hofer declared himself imperial commandant of the Tyrol in the absence of the ruler and for 2 months ruled the land from Hofburg in the name of the Emperor of Austria. He announced new laws and taxes and minted his own coins. He also sent 2 men to Britain to ask for assistance. On September 29, he received a medal from the Emperor and another promise that Austria would not abandon Tyrol. Hofer's hopes were dashed on October 14, when the Treaty of Schönbrunn again ceded Tyrol to Bavaria. French and Bavarian troops advanced and Hofer retreated to the mountains. Promised amnesty, Hofer and his followers laid down the weapons on November 8. Hofer retired to his home valley. Final attempt and capture. On November 12, Hofer received false reports of Austrian victories and tried to summon his troops on November 15. This time he had little following and French troops defeated his forces. His subordinate commanders surrendered and urged him to escape over the mountains. Hofer hid in a hut in the mountains in the Passaital and the French announced a reward of 1,500 guilders for his head. His neighbor Franz-Raffl betrayed him and revealed his hiding place to the authorities. Hofer was captured by Italian troops on January 28, 1810 and was sent to Mantua in chains to face a court-martial. Court-martial and execution. Officers holding the court-martial disagreed on the exact sentence until they received a message from Milan. It was supposedly from the viceroy transmitting Napoleon's order to give him a fair trial and then shoot him. Later Napoleon claimed to Prince Metternich that Hofer was executed against his wishes. Andreas Hofer was executed by a firing squad on February 20, 1810. He refused a blindfolder to kneel, and gave money to a corporal in charge, telling him to shoot straight. He gave the order to fire himself. Hofer became a martyr in Germany and Austria and a rallying symbol against the power of Napoleon. Legacy and monuments. In 1818, his family was given a patent of nobility by the Emperor of Austria. In 1823, Hofer's remains were moved from Mantua to Innsbruck, and in 1834, his tomb was decorated with a marble statue. In 1893, a bronze statue of Hofer was erected in Bergheisel. A large painting depicting his arrest hangs in the Palace of Maria Theresa in Innsbruck, and there is an annual open-air play in Meran based on his life. In Meran there is also a monumental statue of him opposite the train station at the beginning of the Via Andreas Hofer, which was erected by Tyrolean nationalists in 1915. The song Zu Mantua in Banden tells the story of his tragic fate and execution. His most famous quote, "I will not trade my life for a lie." The 1929 German silent film Andreas Hofer is a biopic of his life. Hofer was played by Fritz Greiner.